Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I'm so excited and so hot today, but we're here. We'll go through this heat wave, but I'm excited to be here and to say hello to everybody, and extremely excited to have Tina Adolfsson here with us today, who is one of our amazing members at United Latinas and one of our greatest allies and advocates, and that's going to be like a center focus of our topic today, which I think is critically important, especially in everything that's happening and all the changes that I feel like are happening on a daily basis. It is very important for us not only to hold each other in community, but also for allies and advocates and champions so that we lean on each other so that we can push the needle forward in whatever it is that we want to accomplish. So thank you so much, Tina, for being here with me today.
Thank you. It's an absolute honor and a pleasure to be with you, to be with everyone, and looking forward to diving into this conversation with you.
Absolutely. And I would love to start to just hear a little bit of your story, because I know that being an honorary Latina is something that is very dear to your heart. And then we'll dive into once we get into the story. Well, I'll get into that later, but I would love to like just hear from you and your story.
Absolutely. So, as my last name very much clearly gives away, I was born in Sweden and I have a completely Swedish ancestry. So, everyone lives within an hour drive in the south of Sweden. The exceptions are my parents, myself, and my little brother. We moved to Venezuela when I was 7 months old, and I was there until I was 14. I went to the American school, but living in Venezuela and living there during what is called the Renaissance, the golden years, is was just like my formative years. It was a very happy childhood that had a lot to do with big families, spending a lot of time outdoors and across multiple generations, and growing up in a school that from first grade on, we had 40 nationalities in our school that was 1st through 9th grade. So very, very early on, I learned that people are different as individuals, but it is really unfair to group people and label them according to stereotypes. So having grown up like that, I moved to the United States as a 14-year-old, came to Boston for college when I was 18, worked in Barcelona, Spain when I was 22, came back to Boston for business school at Babson, Tufts and Babson alum, and then went to work in Stockholm and then back to the United States with P&G, which is nicknamed Pack and Go. So the doors opened up for me early with, my very first passport being as a little baby. And the world has always been interesting. I don't just travel the world. I do love to travel, but I'm one of those people that picks up, moves in, and, spends 2 years in Barcelona, Spain.
I love that, and I love that story. And I don't think I ever told you that I went to an international school as well when I was in Mexico, and I think that perspective of being surrounded by people from different cultures, from different backgrounds, from different experiences, from different everything, right? It just opens the world to you in different ways. And I think that is where now, as leaders, all of us, I think that is where to me it becomes a responsibility. But we'll talk a little bit more about that on how we now use our influence and our voice to be able to open spaces so that those diverse environments, right, are created, and the accessibility for people that might not naturally have access to those environments happens. And I think that's one of the things that many Latinas suffer sometimes from, is having that access. to spaces, and therefore allyship and championship and intentional action becomes critically important. Now, I know that that is something that for you is critically important in everything that you do. And you've been very intentional for many, many years as an influential leader in terms of not only what the kind of work that you do, but making sure that through the work that you do, both directly and indirectly, you are always opening those spaces and creating connections and being able to advocate and use your voice to elevate those of others that maybe don't have a natural access to. And to me, that is being a truly inclusive leader. So can you share a little bit more about that and how you're able to walk the talk? Because it's not something that is easy to do, but for from what I see from this side, it feels like it is easy, although I know that there are those challenges.
So I think the first part about it is, I identify myself as having been an outsider multiple times. When you move as many times as I have done, especially like the last ones that I did completely by myself, I would move to a city and not know anyone. So it was basically unpack the suitcase, and then you start discovering the city, your relationships, your roommates, perhaps, your colleagues. So having done that multiple times, I've been in the not at the top of the short list, not the person that you would remember to invite to lunch. So I had to openly say, I'm here and I would love to get to know you, and hope that other people would like to get to know me. So I think the first thing is I do know what it's like to be new, or to be the unknown, or to be the one that is other. Now, that said, I know that I'm very fortunate. I look like and am recognizable. So I know that with an American accent, which came from Escuela Campo Alegre, I sound like I belong. I might not be from this city, but I'm from somewhere in the United States, is what most people end up believing when they first hear me out. In fact, there's been 3 different times where when I showed up to work my first day and brought my license and my W-2, I had to ask HR to give me the W-4 and show them my green card so that they would do the right paperwork. And because no one had ever asked me, because it didn't seem like a question that was needing to be asked. And that is something that is, I know, I'm fortunate. The other thing is I've had mentors who did it for me. Now, they did it for me as men, including women who didn't always have a seat at the table. And if they did, maybe they were just one and it was a token, and it was kind of difficult for that woman. So having had men who brought me in, whether I was a different function, I was the finance function, I ended up working with Proctor purchasing, or having people bring me in and allow me to be at leadership tables, even though I was a bit younger and just really just taking notes and having conversations about it one-on-one on the side later. They brought me in and they included me first. And then, of course, much later, I realized that that's not all they were doing. They were actually mentioning my name in rooms I didn't even know were having a meeting at that time. So I didn't even realize that until I was in the meeting. And I was the one that was watching what was going on around people that were being discussed as high potential, or we weren't really doing low potential, but high potential versus an average performer. And the one that really stuck with me was no one could remember this one person's performance. And the reason why is because she now had her married name. But everyone remembered her maiden name and how wonderful she was. And because one person spoke up, because one woman said, but don't you remember her name was this, she worked for you in this role. We all thought she was excellent. And he was like, oh. And that's when I realized that the difference between that woman who very quickly got put into the high performance pile, between that woman going into the high performance pile versus being just in a normal development role, being rotated, was one woman speaking up and remembering the maiden name. And it could have been as wonderfully systematic as putting in that person's maiden name in parentheses so that anyone and everyone would know exactly who she was at every point of her career in that company. So that's when I started thinking more about continuing to bring women at the table, because we're very often not there in sufficient numbers, and specifically helping the next generation, because it would be nice to have role models. I had excellent female role models when I was coming up through my career, but I think that they were so busy just getting there and surviving that they didn't have time to lift as they rose. And I don't blame them for them. They were the pioneers. They had a really, really hard time getting to the table and then being accepted at the table. And I've heard some horrifying stories. So for me, I want to break that mold. I want to break that reputation that women have of competing for the one seat at the table, and just saying, we're all going to have a seat at a table, and let's just make sure different people are invited into different rooms. You can learn so much. It doesn't always have to be a straight trajectory up a career, but you can learn so much by being in different rooms in cross-functional things that will later on help you move. And you can meet your future clients in so many different occasions. It's just about having other people invite you, because until you're part of the group, you don't even sometimes know that the group exists. And sometimes you know the group exists, but you don't know who's the one extending the invitations. Who can I reach out to and say, this is who I am. I would love to get to know you, and I would love to let you know what is interesting to me and what I can bring to the table.
I love that. And you bring so many great points in terms of the intentionality. One, the self awareness, right? The self awareness of what's happening, of the dynamic, the power dynamics, whether they're front and center, or whether they're in the behind the scenes, but becoming very aware of them. And then second, the intentionality of how to break those, and how we can use our whatever it is, right? Our privilege, our voice, our presence, our grit, whatever it is, to be able to break those and create those spaces. And you've done it so marvelously, not only for yourself, being the only one in many spaces, but also bringing a lot of people along as you've like continue to rise. And that to me, I think, is valuable. But you mentioned something very important, which is time. And there wasn't time before. It seems that now there literally is no time, because everything is changing. We need to be, everybody's focused on business, on whatever it is that they need to do, on the objectives, on the sales, on the task at hand, on the project, launching whatever it is. But you still have managed to make time for others, and make time to be a champion, and make time to be that advocate and that connector. And I think that is something that many leaders can take a page out of your amazing leadership, on how they can become more intentional, and not just saying that they're allies, but actually moving the needle forward on a daily basis. Are there like two or three things that you would share today to those watching? Like, how can you be an intentional, advocate, and yeah, like moving forward?
Yeah. So one thing that it's kind of funny. I'm an incredible visual person. So once I recognize your face, I'll usually recognize it over and over. So one of the things that I definitely do with LinkedIn and contacts is I make sure that all of those profile pictures that are in my LinkedIn come into my contacts. So every time someone emails me, I see their face, and I'm not not blanked out on like, who is that person and what is that story? 2, when someone really impresses me, and I think the stories that have been told about, me championing someone, me nominating someone, me reflecting back to themselves that what I see, right? Like being able to reflect back to them, I see that you combine a fantastic right brain and left brain. I'm not using the word mirror because it's not a perfect mirror, right? My lens has my perspective, my lived experience, but what's usually useful about another person's perspective, especially when the person has a lot more experience, is we see and we recognize patterns. And I've recognized patterns from having worked with and having had people report to me over the past couple of decades. So the stories that are told are usually of stories that I incredibly respect the individual, whether they're a peer, whether they're senior to me. I've also nominated people senior to me for speaking engagements, or younger. I actually copy paste a copy of their bio, and I have it in the notes of my contacts in my iPhone. So whenever someone says, I'm looking for, I have something that I can easily copy paste and send, and do that on the way back, whether it's on the subway or in the lift, on the way back, and just make sure that it happens while it's top of mind. And I think that also increases the chance that while they're looking for a speaker for their next event, a new hire for their new open role, if I do it almost immediately, I will remember it. Let's be really honest, with experience also comes a little bit of a lot in our mind, but also I'm there in a timely way. I say it and I nominate right after. And then, so that's 1, it's just kind of like keep that visual, make it easy for yourself to advocate for others, to advocate for those that you respect. 2, I guess just like everybody else, I thought if I worked really hard, kept my head down, and didn't get distracted by silly things like, games, politics, by games, I mean softball games, going to the hockey game, etc. We all know what I mean by that. So someone was going to notice, and they were going to tap me on the shoulder and say, congratulations, you've done a wonderful job. You are a gold star. And that only happens in school. That only happens when we're all working, we're all doing the same, we're all handing in assignments, and we're all taking tests. The reality is, even when you're writing a fantastic recommendation or a great report, you generally don't get that immediate feedback. And even if you do, it doesn't translate into the next career move. So I started just thinking about it more intentionally. I did it for me because I followed great advice that I got from some of my, I guess they're coaches at Procter & Gamble, which was keep a smart file and keep a smile file. Smart file was anything someone else did that you thought was really, really great. Keep track of it so that you would get, just inspiration for the next time that you did it. And smile file was whenever someone gave you positive feedback, or even if they told you and that comment went with that document, write the comment right on there, and who it was and what the date was, and then throw that into your smile file, because there's going to be a day that you're going to make a mistake and you're going to sort of have that imposter syndrome, or you're going to analyze and get yourself into one of those negative spirals. That's a great time to pull out your smile file. And when you're going to do your own self-assessment, that is a great time to take a look at your smile file. And once I realized that I needed to do it for myself, it became very easy to realize when were the deadlines for nominations, and just throw that into a quick, easy calendar. Cartier women, Goldman Sachs women, a bunch of others, and keep an eye out. So when the newsletter pops through, pay attention to we're opening up nominations, we're extending nominations, and suggest it to people. Let people see in your eyes that you already see them as a potential winner. Because you saying that might be exactly the confidence boost that they need to sit down and think about what they've accomplished, what they might work well at, and why they are a fit for it. and then co-author it, let them write it for you, add your own perspective on it. And that is an easy way to nominate people for awards, recommend people for jobs, recommend people to be a speaker, and so on. Keep it easy.
I like.
Did you not know that's how I did it?
No, I did not know that's how you did it. I was like, well, the memory like Tina has is just spectacular. But I'm actually now going to take a piece of.
This is my memory.
Yeah, I'm going to take a piece of all of these great tips. Because my memory is definitely not good. I definitely use LinkedIn a lot as a way to remind me, like, the person and who I can connect with. But oh my God, this is like golden. Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, one of the things I always do on LinkedIn, because I'm part of some networking groups where while the webinar is happening, and by the way, this might be happening right now, definitely, ladies, put your LinkedIn into the chat and connect with the other people, because people who are listening to this, you are either the leaders that are thinking about how to promote your team, your peers, and the people reporting to you, or you are one of those young people that are thinking about, like, what are the things I need to do to unlock for my own potential. But every time someone reached out in LinkedIn, of course, we're all accepting because we know why we're doing it at that moment. But I actually reply and say, such a pleasure to connect with you as we're listening to the United Latinas webinar on, living your legacy and allies. And then I will always have that comment there. If I ever forget who that human being was, I just go to the very first chat and I know the date and something about him. Because otherwise you might just have a collection of LinkedIn contacts and you're just sitting there going, how did this happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you are an amazing connector. Like, I've learned so much about just watching you being a connector and all the different events that you and I go together. I was actually telling to somebody last week when we came back from Berlin, because you and I were both together in Berlin, and I said, they were telling me, like, how can you manage those events where there's so many people and as an introvert? And I was like, because I'm with Tina. because I don't think I would be able to manage many of those events if it weren't because Tina is there, and we both like lean on each other to
I was going to say, I feel the same way.
Exactly. Like, because now we've learned, like, when does one come in, when does the other one come in? But it's about the art of connecting and recognizing that sometimes the connecting is for you, like you need to connect with, so and so. But sometimes it's just about connecting to other people, and you're just the catalyst that makes that happen. And that is part of living our purpose as well, of being able to elevate others, because you never know where those magical connections can go and what can happen. And you do it so beautifully and so seamlessly. I don't know if now that's the actual case, but at least that's the perception, right? That you're always making those connections. And I think as leaders, especially when you are a leader of, of the dominant group, whatever that group is in whatever environment, to me, I think it's our responsibility to be that connector for others, so that magic happens, right? Any tips on how to be a magical connector?
Well, so yes. So first, I definitely recommend that you have the double opt-in. So in other words, you might meet someone who, for me with my universities, both my undergrad and grad are right here. So I get a lot of young students, or, even students from the other schools here in Boston, asking for advice. And what would not work is if I just blast out their request to 10 friends and just kind of like hope for the best. That doesn't work. I do have a short list of people who at this point trust my judgment, and they say, absolutely, put me in touch. You don't have to ask for permission. There's other people where I always ask for permission because you don't know what their reality is that month. So they might say, absolutely, I trust your judgment. Can you wait until next month? And especially once you get into a certain age, they might have kids. They might be in the sandwich generation. They might have their parents. So they might be in the budget season, and during 6 weeks, they don't want to speak with anyone. They might be in tax season, and it's 4 months, 4 months of not wanting to work with anybody that is not straight on work, right? It's work and family and nothing else has time. So definitely ask for the opt-in. But when I do it, and I just did this, and I do think I kind of have a little bit of a script or a formula. So I will be introduced to someone, we'll have a conversation, and they'll tell me where they're at. This very often happens with startups, where they're at, where they would like to be. And you kind of start having that, what do you already know? What do you not know? And if I can just help them take, 3 steps, where instead of being steps, they're skipping ahead, I'm happy to do so. So I definitely have knowledge of the food and bev industry and of the consumer products industry and of being in the United States as an imported product. So I will run through a couple of examples that might be helpful. Usually they say, I do know about this one. I don't know about these 3. And the second part that I then say is, send me the appropriate introduction. You pre-write it, and then I will Tina-ize it, make it a little bit more consistent, and I forward it. And usually a sentence is the descriptor of the person so that the young person remembers why we agreed on this human being. And it's just there in the email so nobody will ever be confused. And then why the young person, like why the startup or why the younger person who's looking for a role or looking for advice or a different perspective. And then I say, I'm sure you will find many topics to speak about. I definitely thought you could shed information or shed light on the topic that I think is, the most best fit. And by doing that, it's usually a jumping off spot. Now, the funny thing is, why do I do that? Why am I so prescriptive? Because I have introduced people where both of them spoke nicely. And, I came back around and I happened to introduce 2 introverts, and I did not know I had done that. And I'm an ambivert myself. So I need extroverted time and introverted time. I will be at a session and then I'm like, okay, that's enough. I need my bed. I need to just like Netflix and chill. So when I didn't do the prescriptive, I legitimately had an executive recruiter and a woman looking for a job, and neither one of them told the other that I am an executive recruiter and I am in between roles. They had lovely conversations about everything else. And so finally I was like, hi. So, because I had a moment, I was one of the organizers. I was part of Boston Women in Finance. And I came back around and I was like, hi. So what have you guys talked about? Are you guys going to get together? And they're like looking at me like, why would we do that? And I was like, did you guys say you're an executive recruiter and you're looking for a role? And then of course you embellish and you go, and I worked with her when she did this and she was really great at this, like in tax. And they're like, oh, guess what? They interviewed the week later. And the best part for me is the executive recruiter was told by her business that she was always allowed to expense coming to a Boston Women in Finance, because her as an introvert, this was hard, but making that conversation seamless and easy made them both walk away thinking that entire event of an hour had been valuable because of that 5 minutes.
That is, I love that story, and I think it comes to show how we can all be, and you and I have chatted about this, like we should all be or consider ourselves connectors in some way or form, some more than others and more intentionally than others, but you never really know who, what kind of magic you can create by bringing 2 people together, just because there's something there, or that there's something that they both might need, or they both might support each other. And I normally connect people. Sometimes I connect people, I don't even know why I'm connecting them, but there's something there that I can't put my finger on it, and I'm like, you 2 need to meet. And then if nothing happens, nothing happens. But I know that more times than not, there's great things that come out of those connections.
And I think it really goes back down to the essence, which is you have already started to connect with that one individual, but get to know them so that you know what they bring to the table, you know what would be welcomed by them.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And as an ally and as a champion of others, connecting becomes a critically important, thing to do that can open spaces for people that might never have had the chance to talk to so and so. But you're able to do that. And it's like a 3-second thing. It doesn't really, to your point, it doesn't take you a lot of time, but it can really be transformative for the person that you're connecting. Absolutely.
It is.
Tina,
one introduction can open up a completely new world. It can open up a career that is in a multinational company so that you might end up traveling for the rest of your career. It could be the difference between, for a startup, meeting an investor. I honestly think that, in 2020, we kind of all discovered who we were as individuals and families and tighter communities. I think in 2025, the best way to help each other, as some industries are going through some crazy turmoil, some people have their families and friends in crazy turmoil, right? Countries. Now is the best time to help somebody. It's not just kindness either. These are great business ideas. These are people who can build your brand. These are, young talent that can come with fresh ideas. This isn't just kindness. This is, letting people work at their top potential is actually just the right thing that we need for the globe. Having the right people work on our toughest problems with some enthusiasm at their best level, I think that's what the world needs right now.
I absolutely agree. And I can't believe we've come to the end of our time. Like, we could continue on this conversation with a lot of other things. But Tina, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your leadership. Thank you so much for your allyship. Thank you so much for your advocacy and for using your voice and your power to open spaces for United Latinas, because you've been an amazing, amazing advocate and champion of United Latinas, and also just for others, because I think that's what walking the talk of leadership looks like. And I'm truly, truly grateful to have you as a dear friend and as a leader I can always lean on. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's been an honor and a pleasure to share. And as I said, in that short list of 20 women that I know and respect and would recommend at any time, you and United Latinas are definitely on that short list.
Thank you. Well, see you. Oh, very important. Check out our events on our unitedlatinas.com/events website. We have an amazing roster of events coming up, especially if you want to become an investor and you want to learn about what investing is all about, what angel investing is all about, what venture capital is all about, all of those terms that maybe some of us know, but many of us have absolutely no idea and think that's not for us. Check out, because we have an amazing event coming up where you can ask all the questions and you don't need to know anything. Just show up. And that becomes a critically important thing that we all need to be in, thinking about and being involved moving forward. And then also, we just opened up the registration for our Hispanic Heritage Month virtual conference happening on October 1st. So check that out also on our site. And register, save the date, because it's going to be spectacularly amazing, and we're going to have an amazing roster of speakers as always, so don't miss that out. And then we have several other events coming up, so stay tuned for that. Tina, thanks again for being here with me today, and we look forward to continuing to partner and do amazing things to elevate Latina voices. Thank you so much.
Hasta la próxima.
Have a good one, everybody. Bye.